Hello friends, we're on location today for a very special episode. We're going to learn something about the largest moving and possibly the heaviest object in your house, or sometimes right outside your house, the garage door and the garage door opener. Now to teach us about this is our good friend and fellow UL employee, Steve. Say hi, Steve.
Hi, Steve. Wait, I'm Steve. Wait.
So Steve, tell me, what do you do here at UL?
So at UL, my role is a principal engineer, and really that means three things. First, I get to work with UL staff globally to make sure that wherever they're evaluating a product, they're doing it the same way. So that's the first thing.
Okay.
Second thing is I get to work with manufacturers on their existing products and the new and innovative products that they're submitting. Sometimes they have new features that we haven't seen before. And we have to look at what are the potential hazards and risks with those new features, and then how are we going to evaluate them to make sure that they're safe.
Okay.
So that's the second thing. The third thing I do is I work with industry and the standards. There's a standard for garage door openers, and everybody in industry works on that standard and agrees what are the minimum safety requirements that a garage door opener should have. So I work on the standard side to understand what the needs are and what those safety requirements should be.
And this is what you do as an engineer?
Absolutely.
Wow, okay, great. Now why is all this work so important?
This work's important because garage door openers, like many other products, have risks associated with them. If they're not manufactured properly, if they're not installed and used properly, they could cause harm or hazard to somebody.
Really?
So our standards and the work that we do with manufacturers and with staff at UL is very important because it helps achieve the level of safety that everyone expects.
Okay, great. Now, what do we have here? What's going on in this outdoor garage?
So this is a wonderful vintage garage door.
Yes.
Some people still have garage doors like this.
Okay.
This is called a one-piece door because it's one solid piece and it moves up and down, kind of pivots and hinges.
Okay.
Garage door openers, people install them and they're very common in residential applications, and people don't usually think about what's behind the garage door opener.
Right, it's just up, down, that's it. That's all you have to really worry about.
Yeah, exactly. But it's very important that before you install an automatic garage door opener, that you evaluate your garage door.
Okay.
The garage door itself is very important. It's the biggest, heaviest moving object, as you mentioned, but it has to be installed properly, maintained properly.
Okay.
If not, it could be a little less safe than you expect. In fact, it could be dangerous. All residential garage door operators, to meet the safety standard, are required to have several safety features built in. One is an inherent reversal system. When the door comes down, if it comes in contact with a solid object, it's supposed to stop and reverse within 2 seconds. We're going to put a box underneath this door. Remember, this is an older door, and it may not be properly balanced, and it may not be properly adjusted, and we're going to see what could happen.
The crush box proves that the garage door opener did not have a functional inherent reversal system.
There are many different types of garage doors that you might have around residential property, and you can get a garage door opener to move any one of those. Here we have a one-piece residential garage door, or on our sliding barn door, or large overhead doors for storage buildings, or more modern overhead sectional garage doors.
Okay, Steve, so we had an older door, and now we're at a more modern, much better looking door.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Yeah, absolutely. Remember we talked about only install your garage door opener after making sure that your garage door is properly installed and balanced.
Yes.
One of the things to look for is that you can easily move the garage door up and down by hand.
Okay.
For example, this one you can move by hand.
Oh.
And if you stop it in the middle, it just rests by its own in the middle.
Okay.
So this is a properly balanced garage door.
Can you tell us a little bit about like this huge spring that we have up here?
Yeah, sure. This is called a torsion spring. And remember, we talked about garage doors are very heavy. Some garage doors can be up to 600 pounds. That would really be hard to move by yourself. So what those springs do is you actually tighten those springs around that torsion bar, and it provides a lot of kinetic energy and helps with the force of lifting the door. So you could just lift it by hand because the spring is doing the majority of the work.
Okay, great. Now, can we see some more of this like in the actual lab to see some of the tests?
Absolutely.
So Steve, where are we now?
We're in one of UL's test labs. This one's in Northbrook, Illinois, in the United States, and this is where we have one of our garage door setups where we test residential garage door operators.
Great. Now, what kind of tests then is done or are done here in the lab?
So we do quite a bit of tests on garage door operators. We saw out in the field that the garage door operator was actually working,
Yes.
and moving your door up and down,
Right.
but there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes.
Okay.
So we're going to do a lot of tests in our lab on the garage door operator.
Okay.
We have a whole safety standard, UL 325, that talks about garage door operators, and we want to make sure that every garage door operator is compliant with that standard.
Perfect.
So
Okay.
basically, we'll look for things like risk of electric shock, risk of fire, and with garage door operators, risk of injury or entrapment to a person.
Okay.
So that's a big thing that we're looking at with our tests in our lab.
Perfect. Okay. Can we try some of the tests?
Absolutely.
All right, let's try it.
So one of the tests that we're doing in our lab is called an obstruction test, and we want to make sure when a garage door operator is coming down, if it hits a solid obstruction, it's supposed to stop and reverse within 2 seconds. So we're going to send the door down, and we have a solid obstruction that's 1 inch high at the bottom of the door, and we're going to see what happens.
In this example then, Steve, would this test pass or?
That would be a compliant test result. It hit the obstruction, and it stopped and reversed within 2 seconds, just like it's required to do.
All right, Steve, so what is this weird looking little contraption we have here?
So this is actually a piece of high-tech equipment, but it performs a very basic safety function on your garage door opener. In addition to that inherent reversal system where we saw it had to reverse off of an object on the floor, every garage door operator is required to have an external device also, such as a photo eye, which is what this is, or a pressure-sensitive edge. What the photo eye does is make sure that if anybody breaks a beam across the opening of the garage door, that it stops and reverses before they even get contacted by the garage door.
Okay.
So what this does is it actually sends a signal from one sensor to the other sensor, and as long as that signal is uninterrupted, it thinks nobody's in the way and it could send the door down.
Okay.
But when you interrupt that, I'm going to use my hand to do that, you could see one of the lights go out, and what that would do is then send a signal to the garage door operator that says something's in the way, stop and reverse, or don't even start coming down in the first place. So one of the tests we do is we take a solid obstruction, and the standard requires it to be calibrated and be 6 inches by 12 inches. I'm just going to show you approximately how we would do the test in the lab. So we want to have the door coming down and put this obstruction in the center of the door where the photo eye beam is, and make sure that it detects that and reverses the door. So I'm going to go ahead and start the door down, and we put this obstruction in place, and it stops and reverses the door. So that would be a compliant test result. So what this is it's another device to test the photo eye. It's the same system that we just looked at, where you put a solid obstruction in the path of the photo eye.
Okay.
But in real life, somebody might be walking or running out of the door just when the door is starting to close.
Huh.
So what this does is it represents a person or someone's leg actually walking through the beam of a photo eye.
Oh, okay, so you take this whole thing and move it in?
We would move it into exactly where the photo eye is.
Okay.
And then we actually pull it back, and the standard tells us the exact specification of how we're supposed to test it, and then we let it fly.
Okay, I'll wait. Okay.
And we just release it, and it will swing once through the beam of the photo eye, and the photo eye is required to detect that very short duration of obstruction.
So what we learned today is about the garage doors, and we had a lot of fun, and we were here with Steve learning so much about what goes into some of the testing, plus to see it actually out in the field, which was a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, manufacturers, they work really hard to understand all these safety requirements and make sure that their products comply with the safety requirements. So when you actually get a UL, a garage door operator that has a UL mark on it, you now know a little bit more about all the tests that went in behind the scenes before you actually got it and installed it in your garage.
Absolutely, all very important. Steve, thank you so much for your time today.
Very
It was
welcome.
a pleasure learning about garage doors.
Thanks for
Kids,
having me.
For UL Safety Smart, I'm Dennis Avalar,
I'm Steve Cusick.
and that's how you learn. Thank you very much, Steve. This is all so
All right.
informative.
Now be safe.
Yeah, I will.